So we are now on Peivav Amid Beis, and we're focused on a machlokes between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan. And this machlokes appears here on the top of Peivav Amid Beis, and we were talking about the testimony, for example, in the case of Ben Sorah Moreh, where there's one Gneva and then there's a testimony on the other Gneva, or for example, in the case of Gonid Nefesh, where there was testimony on the Gneva and then there was testimony on the Mechira. And the question is, let's say the Eidei Gneva was subject to Hazama, would they get Malchus? And that was a machlokes between Chizkiah, and the Gemara says that Chizkiah holds that the Eidim do get Malchus, as opposed to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that the Eidim don't get Malchus. So what we got up to last time was Amar Abaye. So let's see if we can find Amar Abaye. It's a little bit above Tosfos Amar of Yosef. You see it, Amar Abaye. And Abaye is going to take the machlokes between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan a step further. He's going to try to embellish it. And he makes an original statement which is very vague. He says, Hakol modav ben Sorah Morav, Hakol modav ben Sorah Morav, umachlokes ben Sorah Morav. What does this mean? So the Gemara goes through each one of these three statements. Hakol modav ben Sorah Morav. You have two pairs of Eidim who come to testify against the Ben Sorah Moreh. One pair are testifying on the first Geneva, and a second pair on the second Geneva. Everybody agrees in this case that the Eidim Arishonim she'ein rogim mitoch shicham lo lahalkos banu. The first pair of Eidim that testified on the first Geneva of the Ben Sorah Moreh, they for sure would not be put to death, even though they were a part and a parcel of the ultimate, of establishing ultimately the Chiv Misa, but nevertheless, they only came to be Mechayiv and Malchus for the Geneva. And we're talking about a 13-year-old boy shortly after his Bar Mitzvah. So everybody learns that in terms of Hazama, on the first pair of Eidim in Ben Sorah Moreh, that there's no subject, the Eidim are not subject to Misa, because he's Chayiv Malchus for the first Geneva. Next, Hakol modav ben Sorah Moreh. What's the second universally accepted position? Consensus, I guess you'd say. That's the Eidim Achronim Shenei Rogim. That the Eidim that testify after the first Geneva, on the second Geneva, they for sure are put to death. Why? Because mitoch she'edim rishonim yichol lomar lahalkos banu, once the Eidim Rishonim testified on Malchus to be mechayev the Ben Sorah Moreh Malchus, hani kulei davar ka avdilale. We already have established the Malchus for the first Geneva based on the Eidus, the first Eidus, and now there's a Dover Sholem, an Eidus Shlema with the second Geneva to be Mechayev the Ben Sorah Moreh Misa. Machlokes be Ben Sorah Moreh, the third case, and now we're going to hone in on the Machlokes between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan. Now, in order to appreciate this, we have to go back to the Sugya Ben Sorah Moreh, which is on Daf Ayin Aleph. And you may recall that a Ben Sorah Moreh is only chayav after he steals meat and he steals wine from his father, and he eats them b'rshus acherim, in another person's domain. And he points out here in the note is Kevon Shehorgeno Sorak Mishum Shu Asid Limoshe Pekach, Bim Enu Gone Me Ovivel Mecherim Ein Motzi Biyodo Lignov, Bechenimu Ochel B'Shus Oviv Lo Yimsha Pekach Kevon Shu Poche Meoviv. Okay, So the Gemara gives various explanations. But now, Shnaim Omer b'fanav ganav, Shnaim Omer b'fanenu achal. So we've already established, based on the first two Eidim, that he stole from his father. And now, after he steals from his father a certain volume of meat and wine, now we need another testimony that he stole again from his father. And those two Eidim, witnessed the achila of the basar and the shti of the yain. Again, which took place in Rosh Hashanah. So here we get into the machlokas Chizkiya and Rabbi Avo. Chizkiya holds like Rabbi Akiva, and that's an exclusion of davar v'lo chatzi davar. Every one of these two kitos is a chatzi davar. And in this case, the Rishonim cannot say la halkos banu. Just 1 second. The second Eidus is Chatzi Dover, according to Chizkiya. Why is the second Eidus Chatzi Dover? He says the following: Chizkiya Sovek Rabbi Akiva. Al Pishnayim Eidim Yakum Dover Lo Chatzi Dover. Is Kol Achas Mishtei Kitos Halolu Hi Chatzi Dover. I understand that the first pair of Eidim is Chatzi Dover. Even Sharishonim Einam Yecholim. Even Sharishonim Einam Yecholim Lomer Lahalkos Banu. What does that mean? You see, the ultimate goal is to figure out whether the first pair of Eidim could be Chayav Misa after Hazama. And that's going to be the machlokes between Chizkiya and Rabbi Yochanan, where the first pair of Eidim could be Chayav Misa. And what else do we know? That Chizkiya holds like Rabbi Akiva, Dover lo Chatzi Dover, and therefore the first Eidus is Chatzi Dover. Whereas Chizkiya is going to say, no, the first Eidus is not Chatzi Dover. I'm sorry, that even though the first Eidus is Chatzi Dover, but there's no psul of Eidus of Chatzi Dover. Okay, now let's go back to Chizkiya. Chizkiya is going to say that the first pair of Edus is Chatzi Dova. And in the Masechet he writes, Kevan Sharishonim Einam Yichol Lomer Lahalkos Bonu. What does that mean? I don't understand the words here in the Masechet. What do you mean? The Rishonim are coming to be Mechayv and Malchus. That's what we said before. And what does he mean when he writes Sharei Ein Malchus al Geneva Shnia? Okay, yeah, because it's Misa for the second Geneva. Oh, I think something is coming through slowly. I think when it says earlier that we just read above that Hakol Modu Ben Soru Mora B'Eder Rishonim She'eina Rogam Mitoch Shichon Loma Lahalkos Banu is therefore, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that's I think he's going according to Rabbi Yochanan here. So where do we see that according to Chizkiah, the first pair of Edom don't get Malchus? I don't know, this Masifta throws me off of here. I'm not sure what I'm missing here. I'm assuming the Masifta knows what he's talking about. And he writes, Kevin Sharishonim Einom Yechulim Lomer Lahalkos Bonu. So that I don't know. I'm sorry, I apologize. I can't figure that line out. I'll read it again. Kevan sharishonim einam yichom loma lahalkos banu. And we just finished saying in the same breath upstairs, V'edem rishonim einam nerogim mitok shichom loma lahalkos banu. So why does he say einam yichom loma lahalkos banu? I don't get it. It's probably a mistake on my part, but I don't know. You guys are not able to help me with this? You have the Masifta? John, you have it. You have it, Steve? Yeah. Do you see that line? Just want to make sure you have, maybe you could underline it, and in your spare time, you'll think about it. We're on page Peivav and Beis, and it'll have a Beis in the brackets on the left column. And it's basically the third of four paragraphs. It starts Ube Mikra Hashlishi. And if you go down about 10 lines, the first word in the line is Mishtei. And then if you move your finger across the line, it says Kevan Sharishonim Einam Yecholim Lomer Lahalkos Banu. Well, what does that mean? Don't catch it. All right, let's go on for the meantime. Omar Avasi, Eidei Mechira B'Nefesh. Okay, so now we're talking about abducting with another person and then selling it. So you have Eidei Mechira that testified that after the Gneva there was Mechira, and then Huzmu there were Eidim Hamazimim, Einer Rogim. Why not? Mitoch sheyochel lomar avdi macharti. So let's say two Edom accuse Ruvain of selling an Eved. And the Edom testified that that this was the Eved that was a free man and was stolen by so-and-so. And that so-and-so could counter with an argument and say, no, I was selling my own Eved. I didn't sell a free man that I abducted. And I guess the Edom cannot contradict him. I don't get it. Did the Edom know that this was the guy he stole or not? Maybe it means the following. That two Edom testified that Reuven abducted Shimon. Now two Edom say that Reuven sold Shimon as an Eved. But those Edom don't know that Shimon was abducted. As far as they know, Shimon might have been an Eved. And that's exactly what the Nidon, the accused, is claiming. And the Edom can't contradict him. Now the question here is, why did these Edom bother coming into Bezdin to testify that Reuven sold Shimon? I mean, maybe Shimon is the Eved of Reuven. It must be they know that he's not the Eved. Otherwise, why would they come to Bezdin? But apparently they could say, we want to testify that so-and-so sold Shimon. So just in case two Eidim will testify that Shimon was a free man and so will call him, Ruvain stole him and then sold him, then they'll put him to Misa. In other words, they were hoping that by identifying Shimon, who was sold by Ruvain, Bezdin would be able to put two pieces of the puzzle together if two Eidim testify that Shimon was a free man. Omar Rav Yosef, Keman Azal Ashmaiti Rav Asi. 1 second. This was Rav Asi. Let's just double check. Yeah, Omar Rav Asi. Ki Rebbe Akiva de Omar Dover Lo Chatzi Dover. In other words, the Eidei Mechira don't know for sure that this Shimon that was sold was Shimon that was stolen. They're hoping Eidim will fill in that missing blank. But therefore, they're only testifying half the story. And that's going to be Chatzi Dover, meaning the only way you could testify against this Ganav to Mechayv and Misa is if you have two Eidim who know both the Geneva and the Mechira, and they can testify about both. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye responds to Rav Yosef's statement that according to Rav Asi, we apply the principle of Rabbi Akiva, Dover lo Chatzi Dover, is then the Ikir Rabbanon, if you would hold like Rabbanon that accept and validate an Eidus on a Chatzi Dover, then they're rugged. Why Nerogim? Because we'll piece the pieces together. Once the Eidei Gneva come in, now we'll put to death the person who stole this other individual, Reuven, who stole Shimon, because we have now Eidus that Reuven sold Shimon as an Eved. So the Eidus of Mechira is now a full-fledged Kashizomam Lemisa. And we'll put the Nidon to death, meaning the Ganav to death, based on the Eidei Mechira. Even though the Eidei Mechira themselves don't recognize this Shimon who was sold as a free man who was taken into custody. So the Gemara asks the following question: V'hami toch ka'amar. Let's go back to Rav Asi. Rav Asi says, "Mitoch sheyachol lomar avdi macharti." That's the reasoning of Rav Asi. So therefore, Abaye is saying that Rav Yosef is incorrect. Rav Asi's logic is not dependent upon Rabbi Akiva. Even if I hold like the Rabbanan against Rabbi Akiva and we accept the Eidus of Chatzi Davar, nevertheless, there's a reason to alleviate the Eidei Mechira of their chiyuv of Kasha Zama. Which means that, forget about Chatzi Davar, this is not even a Chatzi Davar. the Eidei Mechira don't even have a clue as to whether or not Shimon who was sold as an Eved was Shimon who was stolen. And therefore their Eidus is really not even a Chatzi Dover, it's nothing. Meaning, Rabbanan could accept an Eidus of Chatzi Dover if that Chatzi Dover stands on its own. If it's an Eidus that we can accept, and independently we have reason to accept it. But if the Eidei Mechira are only testifying on something that's relevant if there were Eidei Gneva, that's not even a Chatzi Dover. Ella says Abaye afilu temer Rabbanan b'delo asu Eidei Gneva. So Ravasi could work out even according to the Rabbanan. And we're going to accept the Eidus, even though it's a Chatzi Dover. And nevertheless, we'll understand how Ravasi could say that even according to the Rabbanon, who accept and validate a Chatzi Dover, nevertheless, the Eidei Mechir Shehuzmu ein nerogim. And the case of ein nerogim here in this brisa is b'delo asu Eidei Gneva. That we don't have any Eidus on the Gneva. That doesn't make any sense. If there's no Eidus on the Gneva at all, then what meaning does the Eidei Mechira have? I mean, okay, a man sold somebody as an Eved, so what? Ihachi Maila Meimer. What was Rasi coming to tell me? What's the Chiddush over here? There's no meaning to this Eidus if there's no Eidei Gneva. Lo tzricha, the Alpha Gav the Asel Basof. In other words, first the Eidei Mechira came into Bezdin, and then the Eidei Gneva came into Bezdin. So why the Eidei Mechira Potur? Because at the moment that they testified, that testimony would not have the potential to put this man to death, this Gana. Because at that point in time, there was no Eidei Gneva. So we look at Hazam at the time of the Eidus. And at the moment of the Eidus on Mechira, since there are no Eidei Gneva, there's no Eidus to kill this, have this person put to death. And therefore, Einam Nerogim. So the Gemara asks, Vakati Maila Meima. Still, the Gemara says there's no Chiddush. Because if the Eidei Mechira came first on their own, there's no way that they can put this man to death. So for sure they're potter from Hazama. Lo tzricha de kama ramzi ramuze. In other words, when the Eidei Gneva came in, they were sort of hinting or with some sort of sign language, remiza to the Eidei Mechira. This is called remizos. And the fact that the Eidei Gneva are doing these remizos means that the two pairs of Eidim were working together. They're working together. So therefore, if they're working together, it means that the Eidei Mechira knew of the Eidei Gneva, and therefore the Eidei Mechira had his mama to put this man to death for Gonim Nefashos. Kamash Malan. That's what Rasi wants to teach me. Remiza lav klumu. that Remiza doesn't prove anything. And that leads us to the Mishnah here on the bottom of Daf Pei Vav Amid Beis, which in Ritz Hashem we'll pick up tomorrow. Wait, what's tomorrow? Thursday? Yeah, we should be able to. So the only thing is, I have to tell you, I still can't figure out that line here in the Masechet. Kevet Sharishonim Einam Yecholim Lomar Lahalkos Pon. I don't know I have no clue what he has in mind there. Okay then? So thank you and have a great day.